Hi guys, welcome to what we're calling Fri-Yay. My name is Kelsey. I'm the Teen Services Librarian here at the Smith Public Library. We wanted to make sure that we got some content online for teens and for anyone who reads YA. So we are going to be doing on Fridays, we're going to be doing book talks, which we're going to do today. We're going to be doing crafts probably. We're coming up with tons of really cool stuff for you, so we're very excited to get that started. Make sure you are checking out if you're seeing this, you're going to already be on our Facebook page, so good job, you completed step one. But make sure you like our Facebook page so you can get all of the updates. Also make sure you're following our Instagram, it's at Smith Library. We're going to be posting some new content on there as well. We also have a Twitter account. I can't remember it off the top of my head, but I guarantee you can find it on the Facebook page. So make sure you're checking all of our online social media platforms so that you can get all of this good stuff while we're closed. Because we want to make sure that we're here for you guys and that we're providing you with information and updates and all the resources you need while we are closed during COVID-19. So we're going to do a book talk today, and then at the end I'm going to go over Overdrive, which is our ebook and downloadable audio platform, and we're going to talk about the Overdrive app, which is called Libby, just so that you guys know how to access that, so that you can make sure you're getting your ebooks and your audiobooks while we're still closed. So I feel like there was something else I wanted to mention before we did this, but hopefully I'll remember. But we're gonna go ahead and get started. This video may be broken into segments. I apologize for the inconvenience with that, but with the recording equipment that we have right now, we're probably gonna have to post this in a couple parts. So consider this part one, most likely, and then there will probably be a part two and maybe a part three. I can get pretty long-winded, so I apologize if this is more parts than you want to watch, but I've got a lot of books to talk about, and then we're going to talk about our online resources, okay? All right. So the first book that I wanted to talk about today, and if you don't know what a book talk is, it's kind of just an opportunity for us to sit down and talk about some of our favorite books that we've been reading. We want to talk up these books, so that's why it's called a book talk, is because we're talking them up, we're giving you details, we're giving you information. We're trying to make you want to read these books too. So the books that I'm talking about today are just books that I have enjoyed recently. There's no specific set genre. It's just stuff that I've really been enjoying lately, stuff that I really love that was released over the past year or so. So a lot of this stuff is pretty recent. So we're going to start with The Merciful Crow. The Merciful Crow is by Margaret Owen. It is her debut novel, actually, which just means that it's her first published novel that she's ever put out. It's a fantasy. We've got a copy right here right now, if you can see that. It's actually the first book in a duology, which means that there is going to be a second book coming out, and that is going to be released, they're thinking, probably in July of this year, in July 2020. I believe that it's at the end of July, I think July 28th. Was the date that they have scheduled right now. So keep your eye out. If you enjoyed The Merciful Crow, if you've already read it, keep an eye out for the second one. The second one is called The Faithless Hawk. I really enjoyed this book because it's one of the most original fantasy novels that I've read in a long time. It has a very unique magic system, something that I've never seen done in any other fantasy novels. It's kind of hard to explain. You'll just have to check it out for yourself, but the magic system involves the use of teeth of mostly dead people and animals. So it's bizarre, it's very different, but it is, like I said, one of the most original fantasy novels that I've read in a long time. There is a little bit of romance. It's kind of a slow burn, so the romance doesn't really start to ramp up until towards the end of the book. So if romance isn't your thing, it's not too bad. It doesn't take over the whole book. There's a ton of action. There's a lot of sequences where they're just running from their enemies, where there's fights going on. So I wouldn't worry about being turned off by the romance, I think that that's not really something to worry too much about. I did want to talk about the fact that this book focuses on found family. If you're not aware of what found family is, it's the idea that you can create your own family unit around you. So if you, for some reason, if you have lost your biological family, if you're not close to your biological family, if you don't have that support system around you, you can find found family is the relationships that you build around you to bring you closer to people, to give yourself that support system. So your very close friends might be your found family. You might have a mentor that you consider to be found family. It's really kind of, your family is who you make it. So, I mean, you might have friends right now that you consider so close to you that they're family. I mean, I feel the same way about some of my friends. So I really like that aspect of this book. So it's The Merciful Crow by Margaret Owen. We have a copy. There will also be a copy online very shortly. I think we may already have one, or we at least have the audiobook. Okay, my next book. So I said that The Merciful Crow was one of my favorite debuts of 2019, and if I didn't, I mean that. But my other favorite debut of 2019 is Wilder Girls. We've got Wilder Girls up on the screen up here. It is by Rory Power. It is more science fiction. It's set in our current kind of society. It's modern. However, it's almost, I wouldn't say an end of the world situation, but a little kind of creepy dystopian. What has happened is it's very nature versus us. So nature is kind of starting to take over. Nature is fighting back. The way I describe this book to people is Wilder Girls is like if Annihilation went to boarding school for girls. It's very, very different. If I had not already read Annihilation and not seen the movie and knew what that was about, I don't think I would have a way to describe this. The nature aspect is very strong. The things that happen to these girls are very intense, which I should warn you, there is some gross stuff that happens in that book. So if body horror isn't your thing, which body horror is just, it's an aspect of horror wherein nasty, gross stuff happens to people's bodies. So if that's not your thing, if you're squeamish, if you get kind of weirded out by that stuff, maybe skip this one. It can get kind of gross and nasty. These girls, some of them are growing fangs, some of them are growing claws. Their bones are doing weird things inside of their bodies, so they're like nature is forcing them to change in these weird ways. So, but like I said, it's very interesting. It's a very well-written novel. It's a debut, so it was very impressive to see this kind of well-written novel from a debut author. So, Rory Power, this is a standalone novel, but Rory Power has a second novel set to come out also in July of 2020. It will be closer to the beginning of July, so I believe it's July, I think 7th is the right date. That might be wrong. It might be the 2nd or the 7th. But July 2020, her second novel will be out. It's called Burn Our Bodies Down. It's not going to be quite as weird as this one, but she has said that there's still some weird stuff happening, just not quite as extreme as Wilder Girls. So make sure that you check out that one as well. All right, so our next book that I wanted to touch on is called The Grace Year. The Grace Year is by Kim Liggett. Kim Liggett is an established author. She already has many books out that you guys can access if you like her titles. If you're a fan of her writing, she has a lot of stuff that you can pick up. But The Grace Year is one of her YA titles. All of these are YA titles, which I think I should emphasize just to make sure all of these are teen books. They're all geared towards 6th through 12th graders. But The Grace Year, I would say it's more dystopian. So by dystopian, we usually talk about things like The Hunger Games, Divergent, societies where things have gone wrong in the future, and we're trying to figure things out. There's usually rebellion, that sort of thing. So the Grace Year is definitely a little bit dystopian. It's set in a society in the future where things have kind of gone backwards. There's not a lot of technology, and women and girls are kind of subject to lesser treatment. They're not treated very well in the society, so it does get a few comparisons to The Handmaid's Tale, but it's much less intense than The Handmaid's Tale. It's not as mature as The Handmaid's Tale. It's still geared towards teens, but if you like that kind of content, if you like that kind of dystopian stuff, I think you'll really like this one. This was also released in 2019. It came out last year. It really grabs you at the beginning. There is action immediately happening. So you're going to go from one series of events right into the next series of events. There's not a lot of time to catch your breath, so to say, that can kind of be a con. I thought that it could have maybe had some moments where we can sit with the characters and just kind of reflect on what's happened. But she just goes right into the next thing. So it moves very quickly. I read this, I think, in like a day. So it's a quick read. So, and it has the ending is very bittersweet. It ends nicely in a pretty satisfying way, I would say. However, she leaves it open-ended so that she could add on if she wanted to. It could be followed up with. So that's The Grace Year, and that is checked out right now. I don't have a copy with me. It is currently unavailable in the library, which we're closed, so truly doesn't really matter anyway. We will be getting some copies online, so make sure that you check that out if you're interested. My next one the title is very different. It's called 13 Doorways, Wolves Behind Them All. And really, if that title doesn't get you, I don't know if this will. But I guess what I can tell you about it is it's a historical fiction with a hint of supernatural, which when I was speaking earlier about The Merciful Crow being one of the most original premises I had read in a while, I think this really is kind of on that level. I've not read a lot of historical fiction that tells a story the way this book does. Laura Ruby is the author. She's won the Prince Award, which is a very big award for teen and YA books. This book is a National Book Award finalist. Her previous book, Bone Gap, was also a National Book Award finalist. So you can see she's a very talented writer, and the writing in this is just gorgeous. The story is told from the point of view of a ghost, and that's very different. Like I was saying, it's very original. With the point of the view of the ghost, you get the story of the main central character, who is not a ghost. It's a young woman who's living during World War II in America. So the ghost is telling you the story of this young woman, and then she's also telling her own story of what has happened in the past. So you get to see how the events of the past have affected what is happening to this young woman today that the story is about. So like I said, it's just a beautiful book. If you're interested in World War II, the outbreak of World War II in America, I think this would be a really cool book for you to pick up, particularly if you like things told by female narrators. This is a really unique story. Okay, our next one is actually a series. This is truly one of my favorite fantasy series right now. I haven't enjoyed a series this much the way I did this series in a very long time. This is the Folk of the Air series. It's by Holly Black. It is fantasy, as you can probably imagine. The titles and the covers pretty much give it away. But the first one is called The Cruel Prince, the second one is The Wicked King, and the third one is The Queen of Nothing. It's a trilogy. It will emotionally destroy you. The second book ends with a cliffhanger that I had to wait like a year and a half to see what happened, and it was distressing. So I think that if you enjoy your fantasy with a lot of politics and backstabbing, and I mean, it's got battles, it's got romance, it's got a little bit of everything. I think that our main character, the way that she deals with kind of the hands that she's dealt, it's impressive. I love the story. I think that Holly Black has done an excellent job. Each book was better than the last, which a lot of times with series you can't say that. A lot of times that second book usually kind of falls flat. But it was truly, every single book was just as good as the one before it, if not better. I love this series. If you like fantasy with fairies or fae per se, I think you'll really enjoy this one. There is, like I was saying earlier, there's quite a bit of romance. This is a pretty romantic one. So maybe not so much in the first book, but getting into the second and the third book, that's definitely part of it. So if you prefer your fantasy, just straight up fantasy with no kind of romance, maybe skip this one. But and I just love the covers. They're beautiful covers. But we've got, right now, the first one is checked out. Somebody has it at home with them, but I brought in 2 of the second and the third. So, and these are available online. Everything that I'm talking about today is going to be available on Overdrive and Libby. So make sure you check those out later. And finally, I want to talk about Scythe. Scythe, it's technically, the series is called the Arc of a Scythe series. These are by Neil Shusterman, who is a very prolific writer, especially in the teen and YA area. I actually had the opportunity to see him speak at the North Texas Teen Book Festival this year. That was very cool. We've got some awesome giveaways actually coming up with Teen Book Club for that. So keep an eye on the Facebook page for that information. But this is the finale to the series. This is The Toll. This one just came out last year. This year we did this series for book club. We did the first book for Teen Book Club. It wound up being a lot of people's favorite book that they had ever done for book club. We really enjoyed this one. We had a really great discussion about it. It is, I don't know if I would call it dystopia. It's definitely a futuristic society. Neil Shusterman sets this pretty far in the future to a point where we have created technologies that have, in an essence, destroyed death. Like, we cannot die naturally anymore. All of our information is stored in something called the Thunderhead, which might sound familiar. But the technology, it's just wild. The things that he comes up with are incredible. I will say it does, I mean, if you can see the covers, it deals with death. It deals with the idea of being a Grim Reaper, per se. So it's pretty violent. The first one, I think what I would say it has a normal amount of violence. I mean, if you've read the Hunger Games, you can absolutely do Scythe. A Thunderhead, the second one, and The Toll, this third one, they have quite a bit more violence. I think with something that deals with death and with these kids that are being trained to be, they are apprenticing under scythes they take lives. People can't die naturally anymore. So it becomes a battle to see between the sides what is the moral thing to do in this situation. There's a lot of talk about ethics and morality and the good thing to do. So it's a very, like I said, we had a very interesting discussion with this in book club. So it's a very cool series to check out, and if you don't mind a little bit of violence, I think it would be a really good one to pick up while you have some time.